Do. And we're live, ladies and gentlemen.
And welcome to the people. Hello, Erica.
Hello, Robert. Good evening.
Good evening. These evening gigs are interesting. So I want to jump right in because we have some really important guests coming on the show today, and you know how I like to start with the most outrageous moment. So Nancy Pelosi. I mean, if you want to talk about the deep state, and ladies and gentlemen, so we have Matthew Taylor and Kash Patel, Government Gangsters,
Yes.
on in the main part of the show. So stay tuned for that. And it's all about the deep state. But you have sort of the queen of the deep state, right? Nancy Pelosi suggesting after she helped boot Biden out that he should have a place on Mount Rushmore.
I thought Mount Rushmore was racist. I thought we had to give it back to the Native
Yeah,
Americans.
well, I must have missed that one. But I mean, so and and what she said was that Joe Biden's most, noble gesture was bowing out. I mean, yeah, they put a gun to his head, right? There's going to be one of two things
Ooh.
on this piece of paper, your signature or your brains, right? I mean, a la the Godfather.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
I just, Mount, can you imagine Joe Biden? And she said Joe Biden was a consequential president, so he should be on Mount Rushmore. Well, he was certainly consequential. I don't know that.
Consequential, I do not think that word means what you think it means. I'm not sure.
Anyways,
All right.
okay,
You
let's roll
ready to
them.
go?
I'm
And
always
a
ready to
three,
go.
and a two, and a one.
Hello, and welcome to Of the People. Today, one man's socialism or one person's socialism is another person's neighborliness. That's right, you heard it right. So, Kamala Harris picks Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, much fanfare, to be her VP. Right? The first thing that comes to mind is Jews. If you're Jewish, you need not apply. So they clearly passed over the moderate Governor Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania. We can argue whether he's really a moderate or not, but he's certainly more moderate than Governor Walz, if you look at his record. And they didn't want him because he was Jewish, and they were afraid of alienating clearly the let's call it the pro Hamas vote in Minnesota, in Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin, right? So you're talking about clearly that, in the words of former Secretary James Baker, and we're going back years and years, and I am parodying him, is F the Jews, they're not going to vote for us anyways. In this case, the calculus has to have been F the Jews because they're going to vote for us regardless of who we pick, which clearly that's where all this went. But you sort of go through this and you look at the political calculus. Clearly, it means that they think that this election will turn on the Rust Belt vote in states of Pennsylvania, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. We can add Michigan. It's not a Rust Belt state, but I think, obviously, given the Muslim population in Dearborn, I think that had to have been a calculus for all of this, right? So those are your states. The problem is, who is Governor Walz? I mean, he's a two-term governor sitting. He's a former congressman. He served in the military, and he's a teacher. And they're going to portray him as this moderate guy. But the truth is, if you look at his record, he is far more progressive and far more extreme than Kamala Harris, if you can believe that. That's a big statement to make. But if you look at his record and you go down this, let's remember during COVID, this was the guy who prevented people from going to their houses of worship to pray to God, but he allowed you to shop in the Mall of America. This is the guy through executive order who passed the snitch law or the snitch ordinance that wanted you to rat out your fellow Minnesotans or Minneapolisans or whatever you want to call them for leaving their house when there was a I forget what they call it, but you had to stay in your home. And let's not forget that this is the guy who fanned the flames of the George Floyd Black Lives Matter protesters in 2020 when Minneapolis was burning and he refused to call out the National Guard. He's pro-illegal immigrant. If the list goes on and on here. They're going to paint him as a moderate. People look at his record. Let's look at those three areas. We're looking at the economy. You're going to look at illegal immigration, right? And you're going to look at his position on guns, even though he's a gun owner. Yeah, we'll see how far that gets you. So that's Tim Walz. But here's what I want you to really see. So Tim Walz, in his own words, because you know how I hate to put words in people's mouths, was at the White Dudes for Harris fundraiser. Now, if a Republican, Trump or anyone else had a White Dudes for Republicans fundraiser, I cannot imagine the outrage in the faux outrage in the press, of course. So here's what Governor Walz had to say at that. And he said the following: don't ever shy away from progressive values. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness. Now, it sounds so reasonable, doesn't it? And that's really the allure. It sounds reasonable. But he goes on to say that this is our moment. This is not just transformational for one election. This is transformational for several generations. And he is right about that. The real reason rural America hurts is because the robber barons like these guys have come in, and these are the guys that make money, take money out of public schools for private schools to give vouchers to people already going to private schools. They undermine the basic social safety net that makes this country great. So you're going right after race wars, back to race wars, and you're going to class warfare. You're going right back to the fact of government-run schools and how dare you want your children to actually have an education to lift them up. So this is the guy that they've nominated to be her running mate. And let's remember that Kamala Harris not only has never won a primary, right? She's now been anointed by the Democratic Party here. So, and Ericka, do me a favor, pull up the picture because this really sums it up. Let's not forget that this is Governor Walz with someone else from the state of Minnesota, Representative Ilhan Omar. So you want to know what you're getting, ladies and gentlemen, in the VP pick? I know a VP pick should do no harm, but they're going for it. They didn't pick a moderate. This is who they picked. So that's the monologue, but more to follow for sure. Ladies and gentlemen, Ericka, come back in the show. I want to introduce to you Kash Patel, who has a laundry list. As long he was National Security Council, worked, DNI. You were chief of staff for Secretary of Defense, and we have Matthew Taylor, award-winning director, producer, produced Government Gangsters, Clinton Cash. Guys, thank you for the show. Your timing is great because you want an example of the deep state, the whole selection process. Nancy Pelosi, welcome to the show of the people.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks so much.
Absolutely. I want to dive right into this. Is Nancy Pelosi part of the deep state? She must be, right? I mean, I know you named names in the book, but let's go for it.
Take it away, Matthew.
I mean,
wait. You're not punting to him, are you?
Oh yeah, on this one I am.
Yeah, it's the apex predator of the Democratic Party. I mean,
yeah.
Pelosi, is one of the greatest politicians of American history, and how she's able to maneuver and manipulate and become a multi-millionaire. And that's a small number. It's much larger than you can imagine. And so she is a very, very skilled political animal. She gets what she wants. She's positioned things all over the government. So yeah, I would say that when it comes to the government gangster, she's a high up Don. She may not be the top, but there are times where she's been the top. I mean, look at her ability to become speaker so many times. You have to admit it's very impressive. And as a political opponent, I respect her cunning and capabilities.
No, you're absolutely right. Look, government gangsters aren't people who are unsuccessful. It's dismissive to label them as such because we disagree with their politics. That's separate and apart from the reason I dislike Nancy Pelosi. I dislike her because she represents everything that's bad with Washington, D.C. Whether she's in leadership or anointing the next leadership or eviscerating the democratic process for the Democratic Party and throwing out 14 million votes and anointing Kamala Harris to be the president, she is always right there, no degrees of separation from what is going on in the powerhouse of Washington. And what is she, like 80 something? And they're making fun of us for having octogenarians, but she will not go away. I mean, she's not Speaker of the House anymore, and she might be more powerful now than she ever has been. She just remade the political presidential landscape with the sitting president of the United States, sidelined him and handpicked his successor. I mean,
Well,
literally. And you got to be kidding me if you don't think she didn't pick the vice president of the United States. And
didn't
that's what
they
embodies government gangster.
didn't they make changes to the 25th Amendment like right before she was leaving her post? I remember there was some very little coverage of some
No, you can't
changes.
change an amendment like
Yeah,
that.
Well,
you
it
can't.
wasn't like a change to the Constitution, but there was some
Yeah,
change to like the implementation, and Nancy was behind it. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look
you're
into
probably
that one.
talking about the application of the wording, and they look. That's one of the things. And you guys, I'd love both of you, either Cash or Matthew, to weigh in this, because what they do is they take the words that are already there and they reapply them. Let's look at the case against Trump in New York, right? They took a federal law, right? That had been, I believe, and Cash, you're an attorney. Correct me if I'm wrong. The federal law had expired, and the federal and the DOJ didn't feel it rose to that level anyways, but they took the law, they added something, I forget what they added to it in terms of the charges, and then they sort of reopened it in New York on a state level on a felony basis, right? I mean, isn't that what they're doing?
I mean, look, the weapon of choice for these government gangsters is a two-tier system of justice. And that is what the deep state is all about. Whether it's federal court, state court, civil court, criminal court, you don't have to be like me, a former national security prosecutor or federal public defender. I went up there, I sat with the president during his trial, and I watched this mockery of justice. And I looked to the right and left of me, and no one in that courtroom, if they were willing to tell the truth, would say that was a serious practice of the judicial law of the Constitution. But everyone in that courtroom knew Donald Trump was getting convicted. The second he walked in there, they didn't care about the law. They also don't care about the appeal. They got what they wanted. Donald Trump sidelined from the campaign by making up fictitious legal charges. And that's not me saying it. That's Democratic constitutional scholars saying it. And so what they did was they took out his ability to campaign, took out his ability to fundraise, and then labeled him falsely and unconstitutionally a convicted felon, which they will trumpet around like Kamala Harris and her vice president candidate are doing right now, that they're up against, quote unquote, a criminal. It's the label they wanted. And unless everyday America wakes up and stops antagonizing just the Harris and the VP pick, that's not what we can do alone to win. We've got to make sure that Trump's message is out there because it's far superior.
Mm.
So who is there a head of the snake? That's always the question. I think most people in America are reasonable. I meant the other snake. So look, I think the average American right now, if they're reasonably objective, would not trust Washington, would agree there is a deep state, an administrative state, and that it's not really left or right, but top versus bottom, right? Sort of the power elite. But the question is, because you referenced Nancy Pelosi, and I would say it goes back to Obama, who, by the way, is still in Washington and still, I think, involved in this process, if not the head of the snake. But my question is there a head of the snake? And how do you, because the people aren't going to rise up unless, of course, we're Venezuela. We become Venezuela.
I mean, in my opinion, and I think like Kash states it exceptionally in his book, Government Gangsters, it is like Medusa or Hydra. But I think you can also kind of separate a little bit. There's the party and then there's the deep state as well. And the deep state can actually encompasses both parties because a lot of these people have been bouncing around between Democrats or Republicans. I think if you're talking just about the Democratic Party, I think Barack Obama still has an extreme stranglehold on the party. OFA took over the DNC, I think back in 2012 and rolled it in together. He still controls all the donors. He still controls all the money. He still controls basically everything. So I think if you're looking at the party, Obama still has a massive, massive amount of control. If you're looking at the deep state, that's all kind of rolled into that, but it covers everybody on all sides, because again, a lot of these people were appointed by Bush. A lot of them were appointed by Obama, and of course, Kash had been in government for 13 years. He's seen all these people come through the system, and they're supposed to just do their job, but there's no accountability except to themselves. And, and it skews a lot of it, I think, to the left, especially when your opponent is someone like Donald Trump, who, look, I think it's really important to understand that most presidents come into office being like, oh, these tools are great. This FBI and the CIA, I can get things done with them. He came in from day one saying, nah, we're going to drain the swamp. So he was counter to all these previous presidents and how they wanted to use these tools, going all the way back to Lyndon B. Johnson, to Kennedy. They all got along with these tools, and at some point, sometimes these tools turned against them. With Nixon and some of these other folks. But he, from day one, Donald Trump said, "No, I'm not going to use these tools. I don't need these tools. I'm going to run a very different set of ideas," and that was a threat from day one. And so they had to do what they had to do, and they did it. And guess what? I think they lost in a number of these things thanks to people like Kash Patel, who fought the deep state and exposed a lot of these things.
You make a good point, Matthew. So, Kash, here's my question on the inside. You see, I trace a lot of this, and I grew up in a very political family. I trace a lot of this to sort of let's call it the Arkansas effect, right? Because if I look back, to me, it didn't start with Obama. It started with the Clintons. Now, I'm not blaming the Clintons. I mean, it was happening right in front of us, and we did nothing about it. And we ceded ground, not only in government, but in media, in entertainment, in education. I think it's a multifaceted thing. But what's the most egregious example of just outrageous thing from your 13 years in government? You don't have to name names, but just some of the things that you saw that just made you come to this realization.
Well, the good thing for your viewers is Matthew put it on screen. So just watch the film, and then you don't have to listen to me anymore. But if you still want to listen to me blather on, I will disagree with you slightly when I agree that the Clintons and the Arkansas Klan is part of the deep state. But I think the deep state started when Ike Eisenhower called out the defense industrial complex in the 50s. And he said, if we don't control this animal, it is going to usurp the powers of government. And not just the defense industrial complex, but everything a part of it. How government figures want to go in and out of Washington, D.C., and they want to get their golden parachute. And they want to go work on this private company or that board and come back and get rewarded for their corrupt activities in government instead of serving the people. So over those last 50, 60 years, we've encapsulated all of it in Government Gangsters, the film, and stitched together how basically you just move people in and out. It's not one face. It's not Democrat or Republican. And they're repeating the same playbook just with upgraded technology. So as bad as Russiagate was, and as horrible as it was for a political opponent to go overseas and purchase bogus intel and feed it to the FBI, then lie to a federal court to illegally surveil a presidential candidate, as bad as that was, they did it again with 51 intel letter. They did it again with the insurrection narrative, which was never constitutionally grounded. They did it again with whatever version of Get Trump they're doing now, like, oh, we're going to give illegal aliens the right to vote. It's totally illegal, but they're going to do it anyway because they don't care. Now it's so in your face. At least with Russiagate, they hit it. They said everything's classified. You can't see anything. You guys aren't smart enough to look at this information. Only the criminals in government can do it. And now they're just like, whatever, here it is. You guys are so feeble. You guys can't get your act together that we're just going to mow the lawn with you and rig another presidential election. And that's the wake-up call for everyday Americans. I'm not saying we can't get over it, but I'm just saying we can command a better audience.
I love it. Let's watch the trailer a little bit, and for the audience, for everybody watching, go to warroom.film. warroom.film. You can rent it, you can buy it. It's excellent. I was fortunate enough to see the premiere here in Austin, Texas a few weeks ago, and so I was super excited to share this with you guys.
Government gangsters are the group of individuals, career bureaucrats, who have been installed by what we call the deep state into every agency and department in the United States government. Had Donald Trump not won in 2016, he would not have exposed the flank of the deep state and their weapon of choice, the two-tier system of justice. From Russiagate to Hunter Biden's laptop, to Joe Biden's classified documents case, to January 6th, to the 51 intel letter and everything in between. We would never have learned that. These people are dangerous and vindictive, learning from their mistakes and perfecting ways to hide their corruption.
It is finally time for a straightforward assessment of the state of our nation.
So good, you guys. If you have been watching all of the nonsense that has been happening in our country for the last, I don't know, for a long time, but especially the whole Russiagate nonsense, This explains from start to finish kind of how it all happens. You hear all the players. And so when you're at Thanksgiving, before that, you guys, this will help arm you to have those coffee table, dinner table conversations with your friends and family, because you don't want to be on the sidelines this year. You don't want to be up in the stands, up in the bleachers, complaining about how things are. You want to take action and do something about it. And this film will help you. You guys did such a good job. I love the edit. I was telling Matthew, as a film person, I was really impressed with the editing. You made a documentary.
Yeah, that was all me. That wasn't
exciting.
Matthew. I did all the visuals. Those guys were. Let me tell you, those guys are talented. And what the audience doesn't know is they freaking did this in 100 days. They made a film, they edited it, they shot in multiple locations, and they literally finished it with Bannon when he was walking into federal prison. It's unbelievable feat what these guys did.
That is wild. Yeah, that is 6 weeks finish time is outrageous. It is.
And Matthew, now we know why you prefer to give speeches now rather than make film, because the stress level must have been off the charts.
Yeah. I mean, I've done a lot of pressure films, but this one was definitely one of the hardest ones. But it's interesting because it's also hard because when you really dig into this information that Kash has in his book, it feels hopeless in some ways. But again, as I had said in our premiere, I think this is the manual of how you can break these people, because he did it. He stopped them, he exposed them. And the fight is not just Kash alone. As he says at the end of the film, everybody needs to be activated. Everybody needs to get in the mission. You don't have to put up with this. You don't have to be a victim to the deep state with unlimited power, unlimited reach, unlimited money. You can beat them. It's in the movie how to do it. And this is your time. We have less than 100 days till the election, and this is it. So watch the movie and learn from what Kash did, and take it to your communities, into your homes, and beat these guys.
Yes, and vote Kash Patel for CIA director.
Got my vote.
Hey, I said AG.
And by the way,
but
it's a presidential appointment, right? PASC, right? But that's okay. Look, John Brennan. I mean, how do you put an avowed communist basically as the head of the Central Intelligence Agency? If there is one head of one appointment, I think Clapper's just a stooge. He's a smart stooge, but I think he's a stooge. I think that the other one is malevolent to me, but that's just my opinion. I have a question for you, Kash. So Donald Trump, let's project Donald Trump wins in November, right? And wants to, drain the swamp. And I would argue that one of the problems that he had the first time around in 2016 was that he didn't really drain the swamp enough. And some of the people he appointed that he thought would have been sort of with him on this, and let's call it the Republican establishment, really were working against him, right? So now, and then you have obviously the fact that a lot of the government employees, all the government employees are unionized. How do you go in and just start firing everybody? And obviously they'll take you to court. I mean, this would, not saying you shouldn't do it, but how does that play itself out really in real terms?
You do what the duly elected commander-in-chief tells you to do. If he tells you to fire people, you fire people. It's a private business just the same. You wouldn't let people who break the law, break the rules, steal money, steal from you, corrupt your enterprise to continue working for you. You wouldn't give them a reward. And so this is
promotion.
It's not so much for me about, looking after the win. Right now, we got to look at how to win. And what we have to do is message this film out there. And the problem you highlighted is interlaced throughout this movie. Who's going to step up now that we've identified this amorphous deep state? And the great news is the bench totally exists. It's totally there. I know him. Matthew knows him. We all know great people who can step up to serve. That's the good news, right? The hard part is convincing Americans, showing them the truth that this deep state actually exists. It's not a right-wing conspiracy. It's not a mistake that Brennan and Clapper are both on the movie poster for Government Gangsters. There's only 8 people on there. We could have put 80. But these were some of the most devious criminal minds who weaponized intel, law enforcement, and defense for political purposes. And like you said earlier, you would think, oh, in America, that can't happen. And that was part of the tussle in the first Trump administration. You can't blame a business guy for coming in who's never been in politics to say, well, I should be able to trust my CIA guy, my attorney general, my FBI director. I shouldn't come to the presidency and tell me my FBI director just lied to me and they lied to a federal court. My attorney general just buried evidence of innocence involving my presidential campaign. I mean, this is like sci-fi, right?
Coup, really? Like
years to prove it.
He entered the presidency under a coup, essentially. I mean, what else would you call that?
So I think everyone learned. It's not just whether Donald Trump learned. I mean, I'll let him speak for himself, but I think everyone learned that, okay, we put a little too much faith in them. The system took advantage of it. And here's why. Here is like sort of the final piece of Government Gangsters, the film and the book. It's really simple. Trump is going to wipe them out if he wins. That's why they are terrified. Not just Democrats, but Rhino Republicans like Paul Ryan, like Bill Barr, like Gina Haspel, like Rod Rosenstein, like James Comey, like Andy McCabe and Peter Strzok and the Lovebirds, who just got millions of dollars from.
Oh my God, their settlements!
Right.
I'm so mad.
Which, by the way, that also explains why they just tried to take him out, right? I mean, let's be honest about it, right?
So
anyone who thinks that
things together. And,
right.
and what government needs is accountability inwards. And that's what Donald Trump brought to DC. He exposed them. He started the accountability. And yes, it's frustrating that not everyone has been held accountable. But what these government gangsters know is that if he wins again, it's over for them. Their 60-year run is over and they are freaking out.
Well, unfortunately, what else is over is our time for your interview tonight, you guys. I want to honor your time. I know you have to get going because warroom.film is blowing up. I know you guys are doing press releases. You're out there talking to people. So everybody watching, warroom.film. Now, okay, I don't have it handy. Just holler out your Instagram, Matthew.
M.A. Taylor. That's my Instagram. That's where you're posting all sorts of fun stuff. There's some behind the scenes pictures.
M.A. Taylor?
M.A. Taylor. And it's the only one, you guys. He's only on Instagram. And then Kash, you're only on Truth Social, right?
Yep. At Kash.
What is your Truth handle? I'm trying to remember it.
At Kash. Really
at
confusing.
Kash. Okay, you guys. So fun.
Thank you so much.
Hard to figure out.
You guys
yes.
Thank you.
Come on again
and
stay longer. We have more to talk about.
As many times as you like. Thank you for having me.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you guys. And while we are hanging out, we are going to hear from our sponsor, Israel Appreciation Day. Oh, but before that, like, share, and subscribe. If this content has been meaningful for you, if you liked it, if you got something out of it, like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to this channel. It doesn't cost you a thing. Okay, now for real, we're going to go to Israel Appreciation Day.
Why Israel Appreciation Day? Because no one is telling the Israel story about why Israel's existence is so important, not just as a Jewish state, and not just as an ally of the United States, but for all the positive achievements Israel has contributed to the world in science, technology, medicine, human rights, religious freedoms, rule of law, democracy, and so on. We need to start winning the public relations information war and change the narrative, especially among our younger generations. We need to get the information out there and arm those people who understand the seminal importance of Israel to the world. And being the Jewish homeland doesn't begin to tell that story of why Israel is so important. It's something we all can come together on, and honestly, it's something we all must come together on. It is imperative the general public understands the nature of the very special relationship between Israel and the United States and Israel's importance to the world. So please join us on September 18th as we celebrate Israel Appreciation Day. You'll also be able to find us live on all the streaming channels, including Roku, Apple TV, Dish Network, and others. Because never again is now.
Hell, and we're back.
and never again is now. First of all, I do want to take a moment to thank Kash Patel and Matthew Taylor for
Yeah.
coming on. Really would love to talk to them much more. But folks, Government Gangster is a must read and it's a must see. The one question I didn't get to ask them, there are several, but one of them, Ericka, that comes to mind is, do they really think that the election is going to be free and fair? If and I believe that he's 100% correct, that they are in panic mode that Trump will win, which is why I think they tried to have him assassinated, right? Who they are remains to be seen. I'm not pointing any fingers, but at the end of the day, anybody who tells me that this 19-year-old kid outsmarted Secret Service,
Yeah. No.
there's oceanfront property in Arkansas I'd like to sell you. So
Yeah, and I think that's what, that's the same thing we see with all of the famous assassination attempts in history. Do you want me to believe that, how many, what was it, like Lee Harvey Oswald or one of them was in, who was it? No.
Come on.
Maybe it was the guy that tried to assassinate the president, Reagan. He might have
That was
been
John
like
Hinckley,
MK.
John Hinckley Jr.
Was he MK Ultra? Like a lot of these crazy people, it turns out they were like, tested on by the freaking CIA and crap like that. Like, I don't know. I just don't. I have an inherent distrust for the government. Where's my tinfoil hat?
And you have a book that says reasons not to trust the government too,
It
by the way,
does.
which we both know. But so
It
anyways,
does.
to Kash Patel and to Matthew Taylor, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's
And
bring them
thanks
back
for making
on.
that movie. Thanks for
Absolutely.
making the movie. It's so good.
So let's, another aspect of the deep state to me is this whole process by which, Kamala Harris was nominated, right? Which she really wasn't. She was appointed. But here's my question. Where is Kami? Because that's my new name for her. She's not Kamala Harris. She's Kami Harris, right? I mean, sort of little double entendre there, right? She's Kami Harris, right? I mean,
Kami Harris. Kami.
I mean, look, you go from Robert to Bob. Everyone has a short nickname. I think her nickname should be Kami Harris. Don't you think?
I'm into it.
But where did she go? So she is anointed the nominee. And she hasn't had a press conference in 16 days, 17 days.
No.
So this is,
Nope.
Is this another rope-a-dope hide in the basement?
Yes. Everybody knows that. Everybody called it, that this is going to be another Biden campaign, Biden-Harris campaign 2.0, where she just hides in the basement, because the more people see her, the more they dislike her. She has no charisma. She lacks authenticity. When you hear her record, you know that she's not a serious person. And I mean, how do you get around all that?
So she is a female Joe Biden, right? She would be a titular head as president, and the deep state behind the scenes would be running things as usual. I hadn't linked it to the military-industrial complex that Kash, brings up in Government Gangsters, and he's right. I mean, that, Eisenhower did warn about it. Reagan warned about it. I guess my real question is, if you believe, as I do, that the 2020 elections were, let's just call them irregular, for lack of a better term. I don't want to get a community strike, because I leave that to you to give us community strikes. If they went for it in 2020 and were successful, and the stakes are even higher now, what makes anybody believe that they're not going to absolutely go for it and leave no stone unturned this time around? Which, by the way, you were the one who told me about what's going on with blue mailboxes, aren't you?
Are we going to play it? Are we going to talk about it?
Well, first let's talk about it so people understand it, and then we're going to play it.
Yeah. So, so I saw that. So this news story, a local Boulder, Denver area, story came up in my news feed, and it's people are breaking into those blue mailboxes. The blue, like, post office boxes.
You mean the blue mailboxes that are supposed to be secure, and when you give a letter to the U.S. Postal Service, it's a federal crime to steal. It's a federal crime.
It is a federal offense. That's correct.
To tamper with U.S. mail. So you're telling me, where is this happening? Let me guess. The blue mailboxes are only being tampered in the blue states?
Well, actually, it's happening all over the country, but it's very bad in Colorado, particularly in the Denver area, a blue city that's overrun with illegal immigrants cutting services to everyday people to accommodate illegal immigrants. So, is it a surprise that there is an increase in crime in the area? Probably not. So
not.
this is so it's a story about people breaking into blue mailboxes. Now, we're going to talk about the consequence on our election. I think
Well,
probably.
so let's first of all, you said there was a video, so let's tee that up while we're talking. But the thing that comes to mind to me is right. This now takes ballot boxes to stuffing ballot boxes and harvesting ballots and things to a different level. So they're basically upping their game in preparation
Correct.
for November's elections, is what you're saying.
I'm just saying that it is convenient that people are stealing the mail when 70% of the electorate now has mail-in voting. And
well, wait a minute. If they can open the boxes to take things out, can't they open the boxes to put things in?
oh, look at you making inferences about things
I don't want to
that
look at
could
me.
be possible.
I don't wanna
This
look
is
at
the
me.
thing. I mean, realistically, right? They can steal things or they can add things. So let's hear what's happening in Colorado.
Let's hear what's happening in Colorado.
Yeah,
It's
and
not muted.
Alan, we've reported.
Oh, hang on. As Ben is
Uh-oh.
saying, it's muted.
Right. There's nothing
Can
wrong
you
with
hear
your
it? Could you hear it?
There's nothing wrong with your television set, ladies and gentlemen. We are in complete control. Complete control.
Dun, dun, dun. Okay, let's try this again.
Mailboxes, but they also access mailbox banks inside apartment buildings as well as those cluster mailboxes for an entire neighborhood. Boulder police, as you mentioned, telling us that suspect tonight is connected to a highly sophisticated crime ring using those keys. 40 cases, 4 months, and nearly $400,000 taken.
I'm Taylor Hickam. I'm a detective with the Boulder Police Department, and I'm currently in the Special Victims Unit.
Those numbers, just a glimpse at the mail theft operation she's uncovered in the city of Boulder.
Other detectives, it's just been they've emailing me saying, hey, I got this case. Hey, I got this case.
Each one of them connecting back to the blue USPS mailboxes around town. Officers were watching, waiting.
Last Wednesday, they saw an individual drive up to the box, open it with a counterfeit key.
An arrest was made and a search of the suspect's car uncovered more counterfeit arrow keys, IDs, and mail that didn't belong to him.
None of us were.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
So Ericka, where are they getting the keys?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question, isn't it?
So
Isn't
I
it,
thought they were
Robert?
sort of figured out a way to so clearly they're getting
No.
keys, which leads you to believe if they can get the keys, so can Democrat autocrat operatives, right? Is that the concern here?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But Denver and Colorado are already blue. Where is
but
it
it's
happening in states that are purple?
It's happening all
Better.
across the country. It just happened to be that this report
story
is
on it
from
that-
correct. It's not
Got
being
it.
covered
Okay.
all over the country. Yeah, good luck finding this story everywhere. But the reporters in this piece talk about the fact that it is happening all over the country. There is a criminal ring. There is a criminal enterprise around stealing the mail and basically forging checks and doing stuff like that. So imagine what they can do and what havoc will be wreaked once millions and millions of ballots will be going in the mailboxes.
Interesting.
Just
So
saying.
right now it's a criminal investigation, but and again, I didn't see this story, which you know me, I see almost all stories. So where did you see this? Where can people find this information? Because
Good
that's a
question.
real interesting issue because if it's happening in, let's call them the battleground states, we talked about them in the monologue.
Yeah.
If it's happening in Wisconsin or Minnesota or Pennsylvania or Michigan or maybe North Carolina, Arizona or Nevada. So where can people check all that? Because I'd like to be one of them to check that.
Yeah, I just added a link in the comments. So check the comments below. You can go watch the rest of the video. Anybody can go watch it. It's pretty
Perfect.
crazy.
Perfect. So I want to come back to this whole Kamala Harris thing, or Kami Harris, as we like to call her.
Harris.
You know, Kami Harris. Because this really is, with the pick of Tim Walz, they're going for it, right? Because this isn't like they picked somebody moderate. If you look at Walz's positions on things, and by the way, look at the Harris website. They don't talk about illegal immigration or the border. They don't talk about the economy. All they talk about is abortion or climate change or other things that push their agenda.
Yeah.
For all of this, they're clearly, and then you have Tim Walz saying, well, you know, one man's socialism or one person's socialism is another one's neighborliness. So they're going for it. Right. They are going for this with a radical choice of this guy, Governor Walz, who comes across as like this grandfatherly nice guy until you really sort of break down what he's saying.
Well, and they're using identity politics to describe him too. They're not talking about his views and what he believes on things. They're talking about he's a veteran and a coach,
he's a Lutheran and he's
a dad. And whoa, really? I didn't know Lutherans believed in abortion up to the point of birth and removing the genitals of children of minor age. I didn't know Lutherans were into that.
So you know,
or
what
is
I
he
think
Lutheran like Joe Biden's a Catholic?
Well, I'm saying, you know, you're asking the Jewish guy to give you information about Catholicism or being Lutheran. I don't think I'm in a position to make that analysis, right?
I think you could. I think you have my permission.
I think I would get into a lot of trouble, and I'm in enough trouble most of the time already. So I think we're going to pass on that.
All right.
But
all right.
Here's my theory on where have you gone, Kami Harris, right? I don't think she's in the basement, right? I think she was in the basement when she was in San Francisco, right? That's a whole, during those years. That was a bump, but we'll just go right over that one. That's okay. I think she is MIA in terms of the media. Another thing we didn't talk to Kash Patel about, because I think the media are carrying the water of the deep state. That's a whole different conversation. I think that Kami Harris is taking lessons at the knees of Barack Obama to learn how to message properly. And until then, she's not going to do a damn interview, and she's not going to give a press conference. What do you think?
Was that another bump moment? Or was that
no?
Or was that an unconscious double entendre?
That was an unconscious double entendre.
I did think. Yeah, you know what's funny? When I was listening to the likes of Josh Shapiro and these rallies that she's doing, it does sound like somebody's telling her how to change her cadence and how to, I don't know, how to sound like she's got more chutzpah than she does. I don't know. It's not really working for me.
She is an incredibly flawed candidate, and I think that if the debate with Biden really did Biden in, I think when the American public hears her live, unfiltered, without Adderall, that it's going to be hard for most people to vote for
Oh my
her.
God. Do you remember? So here's the thing. Most people don't remember the vice presidential debate. I do. I watched it because I'm a nerd. Mike Pence mopped the floor with Kamala Harris. She was like, I'm speaking. Excuse me, I'm speaking. She sounded like what is it? A childless and angry childless cat lady? No. What was it JD Vance got in trouble for saying?
Something about angry childless cat ladies or something like that.
Yes, that's what she sounded like.
So if Lord Benjamin can find this, I actually think what was really more devastating than that was in the vice presidential debate. She was the takedown that Tulsi Gabbard did of her. So if you can find, and I believe that was in the presidential.
Yes, it was the Democrat primary for
the Democratic primary. I believe it was 2020.
Yeah, 2020.
And maybe he can find it, because Tulsi Gabbard's takedown of Kamala Harris was the most brutal takedown of a politician I've seen in a long time, and it was done with class,
Mop
because
the
she's a classy lady.
Yeah.
But just, you know, but here's the thing: Donald Trump, and hopefully, Lord Benjamin, you can find that clip. But Donald Trump takes questions from everyone. He goes on, you know, ABC with Stephanopoulos. He allows CNN to host the debate, right? And that's the other thing. So now, right? Well, Trump's canceled the debate because he's scared of Kamala Harris.
That is such a non. No, he's not. He didn't cancel it.
Right.
Why are they saying he canceled?
Kamala Harris agreed to do a vice presidential debate on Fox News with J.D. Vance. And now she will not agree to a presidential debate on Fox with Donald Trump because Fox is, is biased.
Dude, if I was Donald Trump, I'd be like, whatever, we'll have it wherever. You want to do it on NPR? I don't care. Dude, did you see him manhandle the Black Reporters Association thing that he went to? They were so nasty to him, and he was like, wow, you're nasty. And he just handled it. Look, you cannot like Donald Trump, and you cannot like the way he talks. You cannot like his character. There's 1,000 things that you can criticize him for, but he is willing to step into the fire. He was willing to agree to whatever Biden wanted for the first debate. He has proven that he's willing to take it on. So, okay, so we've got the clip here. Hang on.
At the 4-minute mark with Tulsi Gabbard. Let's pull that up while you're pulling up. Look, I agree. The problem is really the media, because what will end up happening is the media will carry the water for the Harris campaign, like they carry the water for the deep state, where they will spin a narrative. Again, I believe George Stephanopoulos, you brought it up, was talking to Byron Donalds about questioning whether or not Kamala Harris was black. Well, first of all, because she identifies with being black, half Jamaican, half Indian heritage, that's who she should be, right? Yet on every form she used to fill out, and even San Francisco, I think it was the Chronicle, hailed her as the first Indian, or American of Indian heritage who was a U.S. senator. So, you can't have it both ways. Anyways, here's the clip of Tulsi Gabbard taking down Kamala Harris. Testing 1, 2, 3. All right, not quite yet. Again, we're in complete control. We're muted here. Let's try it again one more time. Okay, not happening. But it looks good on the video. But it looks good on the video. But let's start again.
Debate.
Let's start again.
To the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting Black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
Okay, so folks,
mopped her up.
Folks, look up the clip of the Democratic. Look up the presidential debates during the nominating process, and you're going to see this clip of Tulsi Gabbard laying out everything Kamala Harris did in San Francisco when she was the federal prosecutor? I forget what she was, but in San Francisco. But she just destroyed her by just telling the truth. Frankly, that's who she is.
And interesting note that Tulsi Gabbard's website suddenly just miraculously stopped working after that night. Her whole platform crashed, and she was the most Googled person of the night.
Not only that, they scrubbed her from Google. They scrubbed her from Google afterwards. So she was the most searched until the next day when they scrubbed the algorithm and you couldn't find her.
Yep.
Right. So
Yep.
anyways, I want to close. I know we're kind of, I'm not heartened, but when you find someone hoisted on their own petard, or really, you see an example of the kettle calling the pot black, you have to highlight it and bring it out. Do you know who Max Boot is? Can't hear you, Max Boot. Das Boot?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Max Boot is a Washington Post columnist, famous Washington Post columnist, who during the Trump years was one of the leading advocates of pushing this Trump is a traitor. Trump is influenced by Russia. Trump is, all these things that Trump, basically that he's a Russian stooge. It turns out, you're smiling. It turns out that his wife just got brought up on federal charges for being a foreign agent to South Korea. Right? So, he called Trump a foreign asset. Right. And I like to read these things. Right. So,
well, hey,
so
you accuse your enemy of what you're doing.
Right. So Boot's wife, quote, an occasional co-author, the former CIA analyst and longtime Asia policy expert Sue Mi Terry, and I might have pronounced that wrong, has now been charged with 2 felony counts of serving as an unregistered agent for a foreign power. Right. And you sit there and that's why there is it comes back to Kash Patel and Matthew Taylor. It's all about the deep state, but the tentacles of the deep state aren't just inside government. And I think that's what people need to understand.
That's right. That's right. Now, so we're going to take a quick break, you guys. We are going to hear from one of our sponsors. And when we come back, I think we're going to have a little, Where's the Outrage to close us out. Hang in there.
Socialism. The goal of socialism is communism. The world is quite familiar with socialism and the horrors socialism has brought with it. It wasn't that long ago. Actually, it's still with us. Socialism creeps into government slowly until it's too late. Socialism, the big lie. Yes, it could happen anywhere. This educational video was brought to you by the American Center for Education and Knowledge and paid for by people like you who care about the future of our democracy. Please help us continue our work educating the American public and consider supporting ASIC by making a tax-deductible donation at asicfund.org. WTO. Where's the outrage? Where's the outrage? The outrage over where's the outrage? 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 Where do we go from here? And folks, where's the outrage?
I love that video.
Look, where is the outrage? Barack Obama still runs the Democratic Party. And by the way, when Kash Patel and Matthew Taylor were talking about OFA, they were talking about Obama for America that metastasized inside the Democratic Party. Where is the outrage? There are foreign heads of state they visit Obama. The press doesn't report on it, but Obama is the one running all of this.
You guys, you have to go to warroom.film and watch it. It is so enlightening and terrifying all at the same time. It is crazy.
Yeah. So let's put up that link again for them.
Yes.
Just so they see. But it just
yes, it's in the description and it's in the comments too, you guys. Anybody watching.
And really, where's the outrage to me still comes back to this election cycle. You have Kamala Harris, who has not won a single primary. Right?
That not a single vote cast for her.
Not a single vote cast for her, right? She clearly was one of the most disliked vice presidents. Look at the turnover in her staff. The remaking of Kamala Harris is nothing short of Aesop's fables, right? Which is
yes. Her former chief of staff came out and was like, she sucks to work for. She's terrible. I don't want to
Right.
work for a woman again.
Yeah. Well,
Like, come
well,
on.
you must make her a closet misogynist. But no, look, this is serious. We just played a socialism video because that's really what this is.
Yeah.
They're trying to sort of anesthetize the public to say, oh, well, socialism it's just like neighborliness. Ladies and gentlemen, name one country where socialism has worked. Name one country where socialism has bettered the lot of the average citizen, whether it's your quality of life or your ability to afford groceries. Look at Venezuela, right? We talked about it last show. Venezuela was one of, if not the leading economy in South America. And along comes a failed actor named Hugo Chavez, right? You didn't know that?
Bro,
What?
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like,
Right.
it's crazy. I was looking to see if I could quickly pull up the clip of Waltz from the White Men for Harris meeting. Dude, I'm
No.
sorry. It's so gross. It's
We'll
so
pull it up
gross.
if you, but here's my point is that elections have consequences, and they are so brazen. Brazen's even the wrong word. They don't care anymore. To pick Tim Walz, basically, they have put aside any what's the word? They have put aside, any pretense of being moderate at this point, because even though they're going to try to paint him as a moderate, and the newspapers are going to go along for the ride, and they're going to carry the water of that. If you look
Yeah.
at his record, he's anything but moderate. Oh, go for it.
He's
This is
an
wonderful.
absolute radical. Absolute
Yeah.
radical. Okay,
Check
Benjamin,
this out, folks.
Benjamin, I need you to mute whatever needs to be muted because I clearly don't get it right.
Right.
So, all right. So hang
Yeah.
something. So
And
that
he looks like grandpa. But in any event, so this is Tim Walz. Still muted. Take a look at Kamala. Yeah. Let's try that again. I'm telling you, I feel like one step beyond. There's nothing wrong with your TV set. We are in complete control. We just can't get the video to work.
Another person's neighborliness. He talks about this wall. I always say, let me know how high it is. If it's 25 feet, then I'll invest in the 30-foot ladder factory. That's not how you stop this.
we could go on and on and on, but that's you guys. I mean, they are saying the quiet part out loud. One person, don't be afraid to come out with your progressive stuff. Socialism is just neighborliness. Like, bro,
right.
No, it's not, because socialism, what kind of good neighbor steals your stuff? Come on.
Yeah. But wait a minute.
Come on, bro.
Let's take down a video. So going back to the White Dudes for Harris event.
Yeah.
Here's what he closed out with, saying two things. He goes, how often in 100 days do you get to change the trajectory of the world? How often in 100 days do you get to do something that's going to impact generations to come? And here's the close. You ready? And how often in the world do you make the bastards wake up afterwards and know that a black woman kicked his ass and sent him on the road? Right? So you're playing the race card, but in a way that they're just telling you exactly what they're doing. 100 days. So we are 5 days away, ladies and gentlemen, from fundamentally transforming America. That was Barack Obama 5 days before the election in 2008. You now have the newly anointed vice presidential candidate basically saying we're 100 days away from changing the trajectory of the world.
That sounds terrifying.
But go back to Kash Patel, right? What he says is correct, which is people have to engage. And that's why watch the movie, but watch it or not, you have to engage.
Yeah.
People have to speak up because they're going for it right in front of your eyes and right in front of our faces, and no one's doing a damn thing about it.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
There's a lot of people who will say, oh, I stay out of politics. Oh, I don't want to get involved in that. Oh, it just, whatever. Well, politics does not mind getting involved in your life. It doesn't mind messing with your stuff. I don't know why you think that you don't have to be diligent and fight back against that. I got to tell you, I was feeling a little seditious today. That's why I've got my I got my AR shirt on. I got my 9/11 earrings on. I got my tinfoil hat ready because, you guys, the government does not care about you, and so
Well,
you need to care about them.
This comes down to what's really at stake is American exceptionalism.
That's right.
Is your way of life. So I think let's tee that one up too. It's a fitting ending to what we talked about today, what's at risk at this election, and why people get up, stand up, shout, participate, and get involved in a process. There's a path forward, but every silent majority can't be silent anymore, or you won't be the majority.
And we'll see you next week. Ladies and gentlemen, like, share, and subscribe. Go to warroom.film and fight for American exceptionalism.
America came into being based on a shared belief and a common set of values. Unlike other nations that were bound together based on common ancestry, race, or caste, we came into being based on a simple and shared set of ideals. That the power of government is based on the consent of the governed. That life, the freedom to live life on our own terms in our own way, free from government interference, and liberty, our most precious value, and the pursuit of happiness, which means we are free to pursue that which we choose with the knowledge and courage to know that nothing is guaranteed to us in this life. Those values, America was founded on these basic inalienable rights. Freedom to pray to God in our own way. Freedom to think and speak freely without fear of punishment or harm, and freedom to gather in our places of worship and in our local taverns, and freedom to defend ourselves, our families, our homes, and our neighbors as we see fit. The American Center for Education and Knowledge is dedicated to protecting American exceptionalism anywhere and everywhere it is threatened. ASIC is a 501c3 and depends on your tax-deductible donations. Please help us continue our fight.